what are the biggest challenges you faced when you started your property investment journey? This is two questions. And your tax accountancy business, and how did you overcome them?
I'd say they're both the same thing. I guess it's anything, it's always the cost of ignorance, the skills deficit. You don't know what you don't know. And that's definitely the same in business as in property and anything else. And the way I overcome them was basically just finding people a couple of steps ahead, networking, and putting that conscious effort into do as much knowledge, basically become as knowledgeable as possible, network with others, and find people that are just a couple of steps ahead so they can say, okay, yeah, watch out for that pothole over there. Because if that wasn't in place, you are going to trip yourself up, especially in property, especially in business. The cost of the ignorance is massive. So you've got to kind of do as much as possible to plug that.
Absolutely. So how are you able to overcome this then? I know you said you got your mentors and coaches. I like the way you said a couple of steps ahead of you. That is a very key thing to do, because the massive mistakes lots of people do, they tend to find someone who's way miles away from them for where they want to go. They're very good for inspiration, don't get me wrong. They're very good, right? You can look at someone who's doing really well up there and say, whoa, I want to be like that person, or I want to replicate what that person is doing. But from my experience, if you really want to learn, look for someone who's like maybe a couple of steps ahead of you, as you just said, because they can relate to you a lot more than that person that are kind of maybe 1,000 miles away from you.
Yeah, exactly. So, because when they were in business and property, I guess the biggest lever you always have is time. The longer you're in something, the more successful, the great returns you'll get. So especially if you go for somebody so far ahead, well, actually it might have been 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago when they were in the position you're in. And obviously the market, the technology, everything is so different then. So if you were to go to Elon Musk and say to him how to set up a VSL to sell your online product, he is probably not going to have a clue. Very intelligent guy, runs all his companies, but he's not going to help you with that specific problem you've got. Whereas if you go to somebody who's literally just did that and scaled that in their business 2 or 3 years ago, they will know exactly what to do and basically give you the shortcut to success.
What motivates you to shift from a 9-to-5 job to being your own boss and become an entrepreneur?
So it was always the plan. So even literally, especially when I look for this, is kind of what's powerful about the law of attraction and kind of how you kind of attract things in your life. Like as soon as I left university, I was kind of writing out, okay, we'll do 2 or 3 years working at an accountancy practice, get the qualification, get the trainings, then start and leave my firm, start my own firm. And that's exactly what I did. So it was a case of, I knew that I was never going to be an employee forever. It was actually, I was in accountancy, I was in tax, so I had to do the experience side to get the professional qualification sorted out. But it was always just a stepping stone, a temporary measure, because I knew that actually business was always the way to go.
Yeah, I like that, because I had the same perception as well. One of the reasons why I did accountancy is wanting to know how businesses run, how businesses operate, because it was fascinating to me. I've been thinking, how are this company making all this money? How are these people being on private planes, private whatever they is, they're being these jets and doing all of that. That intrigues me. But when I get to finish uni and start working for people, that I thought I was corn or maybe lighter, because what I realized at that point was I could have actually become an entrepreneur, a business person, without going to uni, learning all this accountancy stuff. Because I could have either learned by being an apprentice, or maybe employ someone who's very good at it to do it for me, instead of me wasting 40 to 50,000 pounds doing that. So I kind of understand where you're coming from talking about that. But what would be your advice, or what would be your advice you could give to someone who is interested in starting either their property investment journey or their business, but might feel intimidated about the numbers, about the figures, or how to run businesses, tax, and all that sort of thing? So what advice would you have to people like that?
Yeah, I guess with that one, I suppose that's not really your problem to worry about, because in business, 99.9% of the time, you're going to hire an accountant. So your main role in business, especially just in the early stages, is making money, making sales. And off the back of that, of course, to make sales, you need a good product. And with the good product, you need to market it to get the sales. That's really what you should be focused on, the stuff that you can't really outsource to somebody very well. Whereas the good thing about accountancy and tax, a lot of the time you can just outsource that to an accountant who knows all the legislation, will help you pay less in tax, monitor all the deadlines for you. And even bookkeeping, they could literally they could do all of it for you. So it's a case of, yeah, absolutely, you might be worried, you might be anxious, but just get a good accountant on board as soon as you can. and let them worry about it. You focus on growing the business, hiring talent, marketing, closing sales, because ultimately that's going to be your skill set and where you're going to add the most value to the company.